Being a parent is one of the hardest jobs in the world. You don't know what you don't know. And this is my very first year as a parent. My kid is 15 months. I used to hate it, producer party, when people were like, my kid's this many months. I'm like, don't make me do the math.
I still hate it, so.
Sorry. Now I get it, because you want credit for every month you've kept them alive. So we're doing our very first Q&A where you asked questions about how my first year as a mom went, how it's going. And I'm going to go ahead and answer those. So producer party's here with me. We have your questions and we're going to do our best to get to every single one. So yours might be included if you submitted one on social media.
Yeah. Are you ready to jump into it?
I'm scared. I feel like I'm on the hot seat.
I'm gonna try doing like what do they call it? Like a softball?
Yes, a softball first. Okay.
So we'll start with actually your experience as a daughter to your mom.
Okay.
And the stuff that was probably a little bit crazy when you were growing up. And you're like, why does mom do that? Well, was there anything that your mom said or did that makes complete sense now that you've experienced being a mom?
I understand why she's so sassy all the time. It's so stressful. Well, this is kind of weird, and I don't talk about this a lot on the show. I'm a pastor's wife, and my mom was a pastor's wife. And because of that, I said I would never be one. And God was like, joke's on you. Yes, you will. So my mom was late for church every single Sunday. Of course, my mom's late for everything. She's always been late. And my dad would get so frustrated with her. And as I got older, I just thought, like, why can't you be on time anywhere? Why? I just don't get it. And I've never been great at being on time. I'm never on time with my kid. Like,
right.
I literally, the daycare has like a certain time that the doors lock for the day and you can't get them in. And I always open the door 1 minute before the doors lock every single day. Because now I understand that when you're going to put a kid in the car seat, like this morning, my son refused to be in the car seat. I had to physically fight him into the car seat. And my mom, there are 4 of us growing up. We'd get in the car and she'd be like, you don't have your shoes on, and this one over here is like throwing up, and this one forgot to eat breakfast, and this one, doesn't have a jacket. And so it was always pandemonium. And my mom, especially on Sundays, had to get all of us there alone. I'm like late every single Sunday because I have to get my child there by myself. I struggle with one. So the fact that she got 4 of us anywhere, I think she's like the most amazing woman ever. And sometimes she'd have to like pull over on the interstate and like beat us on the way to church. We'd be so bad. Never happened to you, Party? You were getting fights with your brothers?
I was a pretty good kid. I like to think, youngest. But my memory might be very different.
You go easy on the youngest. I was in the middle, so I was right in the brawl with everybody. So yeah, I think she's really tough, and I respect her so much.
Yeah, that's like a classic example of like not judging someone until you walk a mile in their shoes, and now you have many more miles to walk of your mom's shoes.
That's so true. Is you just think, why can't you get it together? And then when you are a parent, you realize it's just survival, and you need grace upon grace.
Yeah. Well, kind of moving on to your own experience rather than looking at your mom. What has it been like being a wife, the pastor's wife, as you said, mom, and still doing your career in radio? What has that challenge been like for you?
This one really hard. I'll be really honest with you. A lot of the stuff I haven't said anywhere. So some of it I've said to Party, like off the air, but I've just had a really hard time with it, a much harder time than I thought I would. So I'm no one to say I've like rocked it all. But I respect the women who are doing it. Francesca Battistelli, the artist, came in this week and she's about to have her 6th kid. She was just in a movie. She's releasing a new single. She homeschools her kids. And I was like, are you about to explode?
Right.
Like, where are you on the stressed line? Because I don't know how she's doing it all. And people look at me and say that. And you just do it. You do what you have to do. And I try really hard to get it all done. But what I'm learning is that as a mom, what gets left out is you. You don't always have time to take care of yourself. That's why you're tired a lot, because there's not time for rest because you're taking care of your family. So I'm trying to find balance, but I don't really know that it exists. I think like perfect balance is a straight up lie. But here's what I will say. I actually talked to a friend about this week, that there are days when I feel like I kill it at my job and do an awesome job as an employee. And then there are days I feel like I kill it as a mom and I do an awesome job. But when I kill it in one of those areas, I feel like the other area fails that day. And that's okay, because you're not going to kill it in every area every day. Like yesterday, my son wasn't feeling great and had a runny nose and I just wanted to be with him. But we had a lot here at work, like a photo shoot and stuff I just couldn't miss. And so I got here and I got really focused and I got a lot of stuff done. And driving home, I thought, I feel like I really killed it as an employee today. But going home, I felt like I just missed out on some time with my kid that I wish I had. So I'm trying to be okay with not being able to do 100% at everything all the time and know that it's going to ebb and flow. And like the people in my life just have to give me grace.
Yeah, that is a really interesting balancing act because it's like you kind of, if you're not careful, you'll feel guilty either way. Like, oh, I should have been a better radio show host.
Yes.
Oh, I should have been a better mom today. And yeah, you kind of have to really gives yourself some.
Yeah, I feel like that's where
mercy.
mom guilt comes in because Monday my kid was really sick and I came in quick and then worked the rest of the day at home and I felt like a great mom that I was there for him, but like did not get all the stuff here at work done.
Yeah.
So it ebbs and flows for sure.
Well, we've talked about career and we've talked about being a mom as a challenge. Well, what about like being the pastor's wife? What was a challenge with that? Like, how has the marriage changed in general after being a mom?
Oh,
big,
snap.
Big question.
We gonna go there.
Yes.
Okay, honestly, having a kid has been such a struggle on my marriage. And I'm just going to always be honest with you about stuff like that. I wish somebody had told me how hard that would be. But what's been helpful in this season is that people who have young kids have said, this will probably not be the most flourishing, vibrant, best time in your marriage because it's just so hard. And you're trying to figure out how to take care of this little person and keep them alive. It's getting a little bit easier now that my kid can like feed himself and walk and like at least point to things and kind of let us know what he needs. But it's still really, really tough. I think that people who are like, our marriage isn't going so great, let's have a kid that will like really bond us together. I am like, mayday, mayday. That is a terrible idea. Do not do that. Because it just is so hard. You don't have time for yourself. You certainly don't have time for each other. We have fought more than we ever have before because trying to get on the same page with parenting is crazy. I'm like, you're crazy. Why are you doing that? And he's like, you're crazy. Why are you acting like that?
And you guys have probably been raised differently, you know?
Yeah. For sure.
That's showing up.
I mean, my family like spanked us all the time, and my husband was like perfect. He's like, I think I maybe was spanked once. So we're like, what do we do with our kid? I don't know.
Yeah.
Discipline's been crazy. We don't know anything about that. But we are actually looking for a marriage counselor right now because I'm such an advocate of counseling and talking to somebody who can just help hear both of you and bring you to a compromise. And that's not because we're in a terrible place, but because we haven't focused on our marriage much in the last year. And I know that going to counseling will put a magnifying glass on some of the problems. And I tend to be that person in my marriage who, when there's stuff under the rug, some people will just be like, we're fine, everything's fine. And then it like builds and builds till it's a mountain that is much harder for the two of you relationally to conquer. And even when it's like tiny under the rug, I'm like, oh, we're shaking out this rug and we're going to sweep it out like right now. And my husband's like, okay. So
yeah,
he's like, I think we're doing pretty great. I'm like, we are, but we could be doing better. So we're going to invest in our marriage in that way soon.
Well, we've been kind of vague about what particular challenges were. Being like, oh yeah, it's just been hard, blah, 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 blah. What are like some specifics? Like what was the most challenging thing? Like number one.
In marriage?
Just
in general?
The first year of motherhood in general.
I would say for us, we had unique challenges with my kids, some health stuff at the beginning that caused a lot of anxiety and even some trauma, I would say, that have become like undercurrents in our first year of parenting. That
like a paranoia type of undercurrent?
I would say things that cause us to like fight with each other or things that cause us like anxiety with our kids. So because our kid had health challenges in the beginning, anyttime he's sick or has a health problem, we both like get hyper anxious and hyper freaked, and it can cause us to like snip at each other, and because we're first time parents, we don't know what to do with him. So health stuff has been really tough for us, and we're in a season, Party knows this, where my kid is sick every 10 minutes. Like he literally, since the beginning of the summer, now he's in daycare every other week. He's pretty sick, and so that's been really hard. We're trying to figure out how to be good parents, take care of him. You're like, do you take him to the doctor? Do you give him medicine? What medicine? We're just constantly very hyper stressed about his health, I think. And that's probably like a first kid thing. People joke that when you have 4 or 5, you're like, they'll be fine. It's not a big deal. But we are both very intense about it.
Yeah, and it's probably a little bit of instincts too, just kind of kicking in of like protection.
Yeah, and some of the stuff was really scary in the beginning, and we had to go to the ER with him, and the details are boring and not important, but because stuff was so scary in the beginning, it almost like it's this thing that can happen where it reactivates the anxiety, even if it's not as serious. So we're still working through that.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is kind of to switch it up. What was something that you thought was going to be really, really tough and ended up being much easier than you anticipated?
I would try to take notes on some of these because I was like, I want to be able to accurately answer. I think caring for a tiny person was more instinctual than I thought it would be. So I have 3 brothers, but I hadn't been around a baby in a really long time. So this is kind of funny. I signed up for my church nursery to work with the babies like a year and a half, 2 years before we had a kid, because I knew we were talking about starting a family eventually. And I thought, I need to figure out how to hold a baby. I need to figure out how to change a kid's diaper. And so even though I did not like it, I served in the nursery. And then when the kids would be crazy because they don't want you, they want their mom, I'd be like, I can't do this. I can't be a mother. It's too hard. Kids are too difficult. And so I was very stressed out about it. But once you have that tiny person, and once you change your first diaper and give your first couple of baths and, give them a bottle the first couple of times, it's just, you just do it. You know what I mean? You just figure it out. And I was so scared to take care of something that tiny, but CJ used to joke that like you'll just be carrying him like a football like week 2, and I was like, and then like it's just true. You're like, you're fine, come over here, and you just like throw him around and in a careful way, of course. But yeah, you just
on the couch.
You're like, you're fine, everything's good. So that came to me faster than I thought it would.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm still at a stage where like if someone just had a baby, like, hey, you want to hold him? I'm like, oh.
Party did not want to hold that baby when he's on.
No. I'm worried I will do something wrong.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was too. Even in the hospital, they like laid him on my chest after I gave birth to him, and I was like, okay, like I didn't even want to touch him or pick him up. Yeah, it's crazy.
So this will kind of get into like more advice-oriented stuff. What is one thing that you wish someone had told you before you got into this whole motherhood business?
Honestly, I wish someone would have told me how awesome that it is. Because
no one told you that?
CJ said kids are magic a lot, but I don't know what magic is. I didn't really understand it. And some of it you can't understand until you have one, but it's a balancing act, because I think a lot of people have experienced loss or miscarriage, sadly, or the inability to have children. And because of that, I think we don't celebrate how wonderful it is enough, because you don't want to upset or trigger somebody else who's had a horrible experience. But it's just easier to complain about the tough stuff. I even find myself doing it. And you don't want to make anybody else feel sad that they're not in the experience you are. So we don't often celebrate how sweet it is. But everybody when I was pregnant would just be like, oh, you never gonna sleep again. Girl, have some time with your husband because you never will again. I mean, it's like warning after warning. And I wish someone had said that all the tough stuff will somehow be worth it when that kid looks at you and smiles. Maybe that's what CJ meant by magic, because it doesn't make logical sense that you not sleeping and them being crazy for a full day in an instant where they're wonderful can be worth it, but it just is. And my heart's just never been fuller. And I just wish some more people had celebrated that good stuff with me, because I was scared out of my mind.
Yeah, and you kind of poked at it a little bit, but what's one thing that you wish people just kept to themselves?
Ooh, I think...
Because people over-exaggerate all the time, I think, and parenting can get a little... over-exaggerated.
Yeah,
I would like to say.
I would say for sure, like the bad labor stories, like keep that to yourself. Like I for sure had like multiple panic attacks as it got closer to the surgery. I didn't even have the surgery, but to have the baby. One night, my husband and I were just going for a drive because it's like mid-pandemic, you can't do anything, and I just started like hyperventilating, couldn't breathe, and I was like, I can't have this baby, because it's one of the scariest, riskiest things a woman can go through. It's very dangerous, but at the same time, people tell you these horror stories where women are like, oh, I got that epidural and it sure enough didn't work. And I'm like, don't tell me that. And these other women who were like, just tell you the horror stories of how they pushed for 2 days and then they still had to have a C-section. And everybody has their story and women love to tell them. But if if I didn't ask, I just didn't want to know. And I wish people had kept to themselves how little sleep they got. You're not going to get a lot of sleep, but the warnings don't make it any better.
Yeah.
Party people, when I was pregnant, kept being like, you better sleep now, girl, because you're never going to sleep again.
It's
and I thought,
so unhelpful.
Well, and when you're pregnant, you're so uncomfortable, you can't sleep. And towards the end, you got to pee every 2 seconds. And so you're certainly not sleeping. And so I thought, if this is the end of the sleep I get, I'm in so much trouble because I'm not sleeping now. So those warnings, people think it's funny. It's just not helpful. It really isn't. I'd rather people say, you will sleep again, because you will. For the most part now, my kid sleeps through the night, but we probably have like 1 or 2 nights a week that are not great, but we're functioning fine. So that's what I tell new moms. It's like, you will sleep again, girl. This is just a season, because I needed that.
Yeah, it makes me think of like when it is getting like way into the night and you're like, oh man, I really got to sleep. And that actually makes it worse. I used to have anxiety when Judah was very little. That's my son. I used to get stressed as the sun started going down because nights were that bad. I even said that to my husband the other night. We're crawling in bed, just like reading books, being chill. And I was like, do you remember when the sun would go down and I would start to hyperventilate? And he was like, let's not talk about that. Yeah.
But they're over,
Pretend it didn't happen, yeah.
They're like a blink of an eye. But in the moment you think, will this last forever? And it does not.
Here's kind of a funny one, I think. How many times do you have to reheat your coffee before you give it to Jesus and give up and drink it cold?
Okay, that is a mother right there.
Yeah, and there's been multiple photos even shared on our social media of you like leaving coffee mugs just in random places because you forgot it somewhere.
Literally this is my practice. Right before I leave the house with my kid in the morning to take him to preschool, I run around the house and look for wherever I've left my coffee mug and try to gulp down whatever's left of it ice cold. And it's disgusting and it's a horrible practice. I microwave 3 times a morning. At least.
Whoa.
It's sad. If a mug cannot be microwaved, I don't even buy it. I'm like, what's the point? It's so stupid. You just get used to drinking cold, lukewarm coffee. It's like, okay.
You could get yourself like a really nice thermos or something.
I could. I should, but I wouldn't, I would lose it.
It'd be a waste of money.
I love that. That's such a relatable question.
This is getting kind of in the more serious direction, just to warn you. What has God taught you through your first year as a mom?
So many things. I actually had, I talk more about this. We can go ahead and link my postpartum video. I have done a couple of interviews on that. But right after I gave birth, I experienced some postpartum depression. And I even had a crisis of faith during some of that because I thought, I shouldn't be struggling this much. If I have a relationship with God, I should be able to snap out of this. And everybody knows hormones are going pretty crazy. Your body's experiencing a lot. And until I was able to get some help for my postpartum depression, I just really struggled in my faith. But as I leveled out and I'm in a better season of life, I would say that God showed me this last year that my need for him is not a weakness and it's not bad and it's not an annoyance to him. That the fact that most of my prayers are, God, help me during the day. God, I need you. God, I don't know what to do. And that's the full encompassment of my prayers. I don't know if encompassment's a word, but I made it up. That's my prayer. And I always thought, oh, that's terrible. Like, I should have these long, amazing times with Jesus, but that's not the season that I'm in. And God is showing me that my dependence on him is a good thing, even though I'm in crisis a lot. And my sinful nature tends to tell me that annoys God at some point, and he wishes I would get it together. I now know that that's a lie and that he's grateful that I'm coming to him at all. In fact, my neediness gets to show me his character more, and I have loved that.
Well, do you have any like solid examples of how you like overcame the self-doubt and depression? Because I know it was rough, but surely you found out some things that you could do to just kind of alleviate it. Yeah,
self-doubt I still struggle with. We talked about mom guilt earlier. I think that's something that women always struggle with and something that the enemy uses. And so I'm still struggling with the self-doubt, but overcoming the depression, it looked like saying I need help. And I don't know that I've overcome anything. I just think I'm in a bit of a better season. Here's something that you know if you struggle with anxiety and depression is that you'll have good days and bad days. And I knew I was getting healthier when I had more good days than I had bad days. I'll still have a day here and there where I wonder, oh, is the depression back or the anxiety? But what I did in that season was things started to turn around when I started to be honest about where I was and to ask for help. I started with talking to a girlfriend and then talking to my husband, talking to my doctor, then talking to a counselor, and then getting on medication, which I'm still on. And it has really helped to level me out. And it just helps me cope with the craziness of my life right now. And it's what I needed chemically at the time. And some women that I've talked to, they stayed on it after their babies. It's something that, I'm going to look into with my doctor, but it just really helped. And I mean, truly God's a huge part of that. Like him working in and through people and our conversations and his word, just to remind me that I wasn't crazy, that I was going to get through this season that was just really hard for me. Some women have like great first years of motherhood. Don't let me scare you, but some women struggle like I did.
Yeah, you gotta have to be prepared for the worst just in case,
Yeah, but that can be hard too because you got to know there's going to be good moments as well.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Any Bible passages that helped with the self-doubt, depression, or just the motherhood in general?
Yeah, I saw that one party and I had trouble coming up with something for it right away because there have been Bible passages that really helped me, but it was hard for me to remember them. But there's one that through the last decade has really helped me. It's Psalm 42. And David, I just love David because he is super emotional. And I'm like, I get
relatable.
You. Yes, I get it. And in that passage, he is speaking to his soul and he says, why are you so downcast, my soul? Why are you in turmoil within me? Put your hope in God. And I felt like through this whole season, I was feeling a lot of things. There was a lot of emotion, a lot of darkness, and a lot of struggling in the first couple of months. But I had to tell my soul, put your hope in God, even if you don't feel it. And the second part of that, he goes on to say that like there will be days coming of thanksgiving and praise. There's going to be better days coming, but when you don't know when they're coming and you don't know what that's going to look like, you can despair. And so it just reminded me that I can tell my soul the truth. You need to put your hope in God. And you kind of have to tell yourself the truth even when you don't feel it.
Were there times, and I know I've gone through this, I'm assuming you would have gone through this during motherhood, where the Bible was not your first go-to to like read, and what was that like and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, that's a good question, Party. The Bible, sitting down with it is so tough when your kids are this little. And if you are watching this and you are a mom, a dad, and you struggle to get in your Bible reading time, totally normal. That's okay. I've never been in the Bible less than I have this last year, and that's been really hard for me. I got a devotional book that I love called New Morning Mercies by Paul David Tripp, and it has like a daily one, and I would probably get to like maybe one a week, but I would get ready in the morning, and then I would like sit down with it, and it seemed like almost every time, Party, I would open it, I'd get a sentence in, and I'd hear my kid, "Wah!" on the monitor. I'd be like, that's the devil. The devil doesn't want me to read.
Yeah.
Like, why do you have to wake up right now? It seemed like every time I was able to try to sit down, it just didn't happen. But that's how I've learned to get the Bible in other ways. I've listened to like literal like audio recording of the Bible. You can do that on the Bible app. Sometimes I just turn it on like a psalm and just hit play as I drive to work and just listen to it on my Bluetooth. I've listened to sermons on YouTube. I've listened to podcasts that get the Bible in. So there are ways to get it in this season that you don't really have time to sit down. You can't journal your feelings. It's just not the season that I'm in.
Yeah. Well, any other Bible passages that you want to go through, or otherwise we're going to totally switch gears here?
Yeah, I would say that's probably my one, Psalm 42.
Okay. We're going to do kind of two, well, actually more just one. I'm going to do a silly question really quick.
Okay.
What was your most, well, maybe it's not that silly. You'll be able to tell. What was your most used baby registry item? Because I don't know.
So many.
I think of
Actually,
like wedding gifts and how you might
Yes.
just be like, I want this and that.
Yeah.
And you kind of throw the whole kitchen sink.
I was so clueless about this, by the way, that I'm working on a blog that has my most used baby registry items with all the links, because I just want you, if you're like a mom to be or you have a friend, to have a resource to send, because I took my sister-in-law who'd had a baby with me to buy baby because it's so overwhelming. And I just said, point to the stuff I should scan. Like, I was so clueless. I was like, do I need this Keurig that makes formula that's $400? And she was like, no, put it down. I was like, okay. I would say this is really, you're gonna be surprise party. The nose Frida, the snot sucking straw. That is the thing that I buy for everybody. CJ told me about it and I was like, I'm never sucking snot out of my child's face. Like, it doesn't get in your mouth, but it's just a weird concept. And then CJ goes, you just wait until your baby can't breathe. And they're in the middle of the night when my son is like so stuffed up and laying on my chest and he can't sleep and he can't breathe. You're like, get me the snot straw, get me the nose Frida. And it helps so much. They scream and they hate it, but it helps so much. So like, you want to have it ready just in case.
So I don't know about those very much. I know you and Colton Dixon have talked about it in the
when
past.
you were a kid and when I was a kid, they used like a blue bulb that's like a bulb with a thing that would and that doesn't really work very well. And the snot can get in the bulb and then you can't
That's
get
what
it
I was
out.
thinking. That sounds disgusting.
It is disgusting.
So is the one that you have like more automated?
No, it's like literally a straw and you put this thing in their nose and you like suck it out, but it can't come. There's like a blocker so it doesn't go into your mouth, but then you can like take it all apart and rinse all the snot out.
So it's reusable over and over and over again. Although maybe eventually you might want to.
So gross.
I'm about to look that up.
You totally need one. I wish I didn't have to use it, but I do.
Well, I guess I'll prepare to do that.
Highly
when
recommend.
I get older. So this goes back to you being a working mom, a career-oriented person. What were the disadvantages and advantages of doing this while being a mom?
I know that I took notes on that. I don't want to mess it up. Okay. The advantages of being a working mom are that you get a creative outlet. I know a lot of stay-at-home moms who are so creative with the stuff they do with their kids because you still need an outlet. But I really feel like I get to do stuff that I enjoy at my job, which helps. And it also keeps me from wrapping up my identity in my child, because there's a whole part of my life outside of him that reminds me that I'm not just his mom. I'm not just his caregiver. Like this morning, he wiped snot on my shirt. And I was like, you know what? I'm not just your Kleenex. I'm going to go to work and do other things that I feel like are of value today too. And so that's been really helpful for me. I also will say one of the benefits of being a working mom is that your time with your kid is precious. And so I am super dialed in. I don't even ever know where my phone is when I'm home. It drives my husband insane. He can never reach me when he's gone, because as soon as I get home, I hang up my purse, my phone is in there, and you can't reach me because I'm just with my kid until he goes to bed. And that's the advantage. Even when he frustrates me because I have less time with him than other moms, I think I let it go faster, and it's just a really precious, dialed-in time when I am with him.
Yeah, I know I've been a victim to that as well, of you not having your phone on you.
Sorry, Barty. And I'll add one more, that as a working mom, you get to be socialized. I know that if I was a stay-at-home mom, I would struggle with not being able to have like adult conversation during the day, just because your kid, depending on the level, is not going to have much of a conversation. But being able to laugh and chat with coworkers if you work away from the house, there's a benefit there too.
Yeah.
I need to talk about the disadvantages.
Yeah, I was going to say the obvious disadvantage.
You don't get to be with your kid.
Yeah.
That part's really tough. I would say the disadvantages, you miss out on moments in time. Party knows I've been so concerned about missing milestones with my kid while I'm at work. I specifically told his caregiver, I was like, if he tries to walk and I'm not there, you push him down. You do it so fast. And then go figure, he walked when I was at my in-laws' house and I was cleaning up a diaper and he was in the other room and I still missed it. And like, I wasn't at work. I just missed it because I was in the other room. So you're going to miss stuff regardless, is what that made me realize.
Yeah, I was going to say it's probably common because you can't be with him 24/7.
No, you can't. So it's really, I honestly, I still cry every single day that I drop him off. I know some people said I'll get used to it. I'm in month 2. I'm still really struggling. And I can feel like, I think one of the disadvantages of working is that you feel a lot of mom guilt. I mentioned earlier how some days you feel like a great employee, some days you feel like a great mom. But the disadvantage is that, there's a lot of mom guilt over not being there and wondering if they're going to be okay because you're not with them as much during these really formative years. And so, there's a lot of concerns there. And my kid is in a mommy phase. My husband is garbage right now. He doesn't want him at all. He cries if I go upstairs to go to the bathroom. Like, it's so intense that all he wants is me. And so I want to give him me as much as possible. And so, there's always worries and concerns. So, honestly, I'm kind of jealous of stay-at-home moms. It's a hard but wonderful situation.
Yeah. Well, and I know you mentioned a while back about how it's hard to talk to people and talk about these challenges when that person can't have a kid or there's some other thing, like maybe they aren't married, like a bunch of challenges with that. What, well, okay, let me say this. Someone who wrote in said that they want kids, but don't know if she can have any.
Oh,
how would you feel about adoption? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh my goodness. I love this question because I've not talked about this publicly, I don't think, but I am so pro adoption. That's actually something that has been on my heart before I met my husband, before we got married. And it's something that he's always desired to do as well. So I think if that's something God has placed on your heart, pursue it and see what it looks like. It takes time to adopt and finances, but there's organizations that can help you. We've looked into some of those as well. And since it takes time, I think if you're feeling that, then you can get the ball rolling. Like my husband and I have talked about, what does that look like for us? And what I've never said publicly is that in the first few months of having my kid, I would be up in the middle of the night with him, which is regular, especially when you're like a full-time pumping mom, which I was. But regardless, I'm up in the night with him and I would be holding him party and I would be wiping away his tears and kissing his face. And my heart would all of a sudden just think about these children who don't have anybody to do that for them. I would start thinking there's like a kid in India right now who's at an orphanage or who doesn't have any caregivers, who's crying in the night and nobody is wiping away their tears and nobody's kissing their face. And then it would come in moments when I would be clipping my son's toenails or something. And I would be like, there's a child that nobody's doing this for. No one is caring for them. And my heart would break for them so deeply that I would start to cry sometimes. And then I would come to my husband and tell him about it. And he would be like, oh, that's really interesting. And I thought that was probably a normal thing because you're so emotional. Like, of course, you think about other children who don't have parents when you have just had a kid. So I started asking my girlfriends about it. None of them had that experience. None of them. And that's when I started to think, well, I wonder if this is from God. And so I started to talk to God about it. And it's continued to happen through the first year of my child's life that God has broken my heart for the orphan and the child that doesn't have anybody. And so I hope for us one day we'll be able to bring one home. I don't know what that will look like, but I pray even now if God has a child for us for that child. And I encourage you, if you're even considering adoption, to start praying now about it, that God will lead you to the right one.
Yeah.
I'm just really passionate about it, but I never talk about that. So
yeah,
thank you for
I don't think I've
bringing it
heard
up.
that from you until now.
I know. I never talk about it because we don't really know what it's going to look like yet.
Yeah, it's tough to even...
Big process.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Joy, that was all the questions that people submitted.
We did it.
Yeah, we did it.
We did them all. Okay, thank you so much for interacting and sharing those questions. I didn't anticipate to talk about some of those things, but that's the beauty of you interacting with the show, is that I get to go places that I might not have otherwise. So thank you for your support in this first year of motherhood. Honestly, couldn't have done it without you. Couldn't have done it without Party's support. He did like a lot of work behind the scenes for me and continues to. So thank you for helping me with this today.